One of the kids fell out of the car.
You keep trying to keep my son from me.
Echoes call from hollow halls, a voice that creeps and softly crawls. Time stands still, the air is...
On the 17th of July, 2025, the surveillance cameras at the Paris HMRI hospital on Bailey Road in Patna, India, captured a distressing scene that shook the whole country. The footage showed 5 individuals making their way into a private section of the hospital, wielding firearms. First, you can see the men strolling casually along the passageway. You can clearly see that they knew where they were going and even looked like they belonged there. They didn't attempt to conceal their identities from the CCTV or hide from hospital staff. As they reached the hospital room entrance, the 5 men reached into their clothing to reveal pistols, with which they attacked someone inside the room. They remained inside the room for about 30 seconds, and as multiple shots rang out after the attack, some of the men quickly rushed out of the area, still brandishing their weapons. The last man remained inside for a few more seconds, possibly trying to confirm the outcome of their attack. With no one in sight, he walks out casually as he makes his way to the exit. All 5 men were able to flee the area without any resistance. All 5 men, and an additional one who stayed on lookout outside the hospital, were later seen on 2 bikes leaving the area. Indian authorities say the footage was from the 2nd floor of the hospital, where the intensive care unit is located. They entered room 209 and attacked Chandan Mishra, a 36-year-old convict who was on parole from the Bir Central Jail, shooting at him from close range. At the time of the attack, he was recovering at the hospital after undergoing a liver surgery, and his parole was supposed to end the next day. Mishra died from multiple gunshot wounds. He was serving a life sentence for the 2011 murder of businessman Rajendra Kasari, but it is not yet clear if this attack was related to the incident. A day before killing Kasari, Mishra was noted to have threatened him, saying, "I will kill you tomorrow." Kasari died the next day after being shot fatally. However, Mishra had 24 other cases against him. Born to Shrikant Mishra, popularly called Mantu Mishra, Chandan had terrorized Sunvarsha village under the industrial police station area in Buxar for 2 decades. He was alleged to have been involved in multiple cases of extortion, kidnapping, and murder. Police are attributing the hospital attack on Mishra to gang rivalry. They said the shooting style was consistent with how rival groups targeted each other in the region. Mishra allegedly partnered with another gang leader, Karnath, also known as Sheru Singh, and together they formed the Chandan Sheru gang. After disagreements over leadership of the gang and money-sharing formula, the gang split into 2, and they've clashed since then, prompting police crackdowns. Both leaders reportedly attacked each other as co-inmates at the Bhagalpur jail. At the time of compiling this video, police had not made any arrests, but they had detained people in relation to the hospital shooting. Meanwhile, the group leader has been identified as Tausif Khan, also known as Badshah. He lives in Patna's Fulwari area and is already wanted by the police for illegal arms possession. They said he recently started taking contract killings and that Mishra's shooting may be one of such. Reactions flooded social media in the aftermath of the shooting, with many pointing out the failure of the government to secure its citizens. Others also point to the failing law and order in Patna, citing another man killed in the city by gunmen. Police officers protect the lives and properties of the citizens. Unfortunately, they also get in harm's way while discharging their duties. This was what happened on the 12th of July, 2025, when the Amherst Police Department in New York responded to a 911 call regarding a domestic disturbance. Around 5 p.m. on Saturday, officers of the Amherst Police, including Officer Aidan Vangelove and Lieutenant Matthew Labuglio, reached the home of a domestic disturbance suspect on North Bailey Avenue. When they arrived, they met a woman who informed them that a man had put his hand on her niece a week before, and he was not supposed to be in the house. Some of the officers went to cover the rear entrance while others stood by the side door. They called out the suspect, but got no response. Unknown to the officers, the suspect was planning a sneak attack on them, and his plans were already in motion. Suddenly, he jumped out of the window with 2 knives in his hands and went straight towards Vangelov. While the two struggled for a couple of seconds, the suspect was able to stab the officer in the arm and shoulder. Labuglio attempted to use his taser on the suspect, but the deployment failed. By this time, the suspect had kicked Vangelov away. Labuglio and Vangelov were able to draw their guns and shoot at the suspect, who fell on the floor. The suspect, identified as 26-year-old Raquel Grant, was shot in the side and elbow. After the attack and shooting, Vangelov got treatment from the hospital before he was discharged to go home for recovery. Grant was also rushed to the hospital, and doctors were able to stabilize him. Police say Grant had been wanted by the department for multiple felony crimes. A year before, he was involved in a standoff with the SWAT team. However, he always escaped through the back door whenever officers wanted to take him in. That's why they quickly deployed some men to the back door to make sure he didn't escape this time. On the 18th of July, 2025, Grant was arraigned before an Erie County Court judge. He was charged with 1 felony count of attempted murder in the first degree, 2 counts of attempted assault in the first and second degree. The 2 officers who fired shots at Grant were also cleared of any wrongdoing, as they were deemed to have acted in self-defense. Thanks to the officers' quick thinking, a potentially disastrous outcome was averted, and footage from cameras will be crucial in bringing about justice. Before we go any further, I just want to ask you for a small favor. If you're enjoying the video so far, please give it a like, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. We recently hit 100,000 subscribers, and that's all thanks to you. Our 100K special surprise was revealed, and we had many positive responses from you. Our next goal is to hit 200K before the year ends. It feels impossible, but hey, it's free to dream, right? Also, there's a hidden word somewhere in this video for you. Let's see if you can find it. Now, back to the video. Nashali Alma was a 24-year-old fitness instructor and bodybuilder who was attacked by a man in her apartment building in Tampa. The day started like any other, but everything went haywire when she didn't look closely at who she was inviting inside the gym. On January 22, 2023, Nashali was working out alone when someone knocked on the door. This was strange. No one was supposed to knock because all the residents at the apartment had their key cards for accessing the gym. Not understanding what was going on, she went to see who it was. A man was standing by the door waiting for her to open. This was not someone she knew, but she had seen the face once before. So she thought it was just another resident trying to access the gym, but had forgotten to come along with their key card. It wasn't beyond the realms of possibility to forget your key, she thought. Nashali opened the door for the stranger, and that ended up being a costly mistake. But she had not noticed this yet. She resumed her fitness routines, not paying any attention to the man, later identified as Xavier Jones. As seen on the surveillance footage, Xavier was not interested in working out. He had more sinister plans. The footage showed him wandering around the gym, from one end to another, from one equipment to another, possibly clueless about their use. He didn't even have everything one would need when coming to the gym, like socks. Unfortunately, Nashali was too busy with her workout that she didn't notice the strange things about the man he had let in. Then, Xavier was tired of walking around. He wanted to carry out his evil plans, so he walked towards Nashali, who thought he was being weird as he approached. Xavier tried to grab her waist, but Nashali pushed him away. She ran away from the spot and proceeded to escape, but Xavier followed closely, blocking her path. Seeing no easy way out, Nashali tried dialing 911, but this infuriated Xavier, who went towards Nashali, trying to grab her phone from her. However, Nashali stood firm and resisted the attack. She later revealed in an interview that she remembered that she worked out while noticing that this man didn't look that fit, so she thought she could take him. She fought back, punching Xavier several times and hitting him on the head with her phone. Seeing an opportunity arise, she locked Xavier with her legs before she was able to flee from the place. Nashali had fought him off for 8 minutes. And you can see he was exhausted. She called the authorities, but by the time officers arrived, Xavier was nowhere in sight. However, he was yet to learn his lessons. The following day, he approached another woman and watched her from the balcony for several minutes before knocking on the door. He had almost entered the building when the woman's partner showed up and scared him away. He couldn't run too far this time around. With help from the second woman, Xavier was identified and arrested. During investigations, he revealed that his intentions were to rape Nashali. He was charged with false imprisonment, kidnapping, battery, and burglary. Nashali's heroics were recognized, and the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office awarded her a Strength and Courage Award. She said she's happy to have empowered a lot of women and planned to organize a free self-defense class for women.
I pushed him. I said, bro, get away from me. And he kept trying to come towards me and kept reapproaching me. So to the point where I just ran off to the side of it. Like there was a gym bench and I went to call 911 at that moment. And that's where he started trying to grab my phone. And I threatened him like, bro, get away from me. Stop trying to touch me. And he started chasing me around the bench. At the end of the video, you can see him getting tired. I said, if I keep going, if I keep pushing, I keep fighting, he's gonna stop. He's gonna let go, and he finally did.
On the afternoon of July 20th, 2025, the North Las Vegas Police Department received reports from the Maverick gas station at Tropical Parkway, Las Vegas. The caller informed authorities of a suspicious car parked at the gas station. The car with Arizona license plates was a black Honda Accord in front of the pumps. According to the caller, there were 5 people inside the vehicle. This included a man, a woman, 3 children, and a dog. The caller added that the man and the woman appeared to be under the influence. Officer Joshua Vardulis and another officer arrived at the scene to find an adult male standing outside the car by the driver's side door. Officer Vardulis spoke with the man for a while and asked him to present a form of identification, but the man, later identified as 31-year-old Alfton Green, had other ideas in mind. Green jumped into the vehicle, but before the officer could intervene or stop him, Green had fled the scene. However, as he was driving off, one of the children sitting at the back of the car fell off the vehicle. As the second officer carried the child, the other adult, a woman known as Crystal Levitt, came outside for the child and was detained by the officers. Green continued fleeing from the scene in the car, and officers thought he had left the gas station, so the officers proceeded to attend to the child and the woman.
Heading towards the freeway, one of the kids fell out of the car.
However, he wanted revenge against the officers. He went around the parking lot and drove back towards the officers. Green accelerated but missed the second officer and headed towards Officer Vardulis, who aimed his gun and fired at him. The officer discharged 5 rounds, one of which hit Green on the torso as the car hit his leg. Green continued in the car, going over landscaping and a sidewalk before stopping. Green eventually exited the vehicle through the passenger side door as officers were waiting outside to arrest him. He was arrested and transported to the hospital to treat his gunshot wounds. The child who fell from the vehicle also sustained a facial abrasion. Inside the car, police found drugs like methamphetamine and heroin, as well as a gun. Green was charged with multiple counts of attempted murder and child abuse, with further pending charges, while Crystal was charged with child abuse. Officer Vardulis was also placed on paid leave pending the conclusion of the investigation. The lobby area of an apartment complex on Roosevelt Island turned into a disturbing scene on the 5th of August 2023. Officers of the New York Police Department were responding to a domestic disturbance call when a young man charged at them with a kitchen appliance. According to the police, they received multiple 911 calls from the apartment building. The callers reported a 21-year-old man threatening to harm family members with a knife. They said the threatening man was under the influence of marijuana. He had also refused to take his usual medications and was acting super weird. When Officer Varela Abreu, Officer Britch, Officer Mayer, and Officer Maza reached the 540 Main Street apartment, they split up. One of them was attempting to keep the lobby door open for the backup team while the other 3 got inside the elevator, unaware that the suspect was already on his way down. Suddenly, he emerged from the second elevator and ran towards the officer with a large knife in his hand. The officer who saw the suspect quickly moved outside the lobby. So the suspect changed course and went after the other officers already inside the elevator, still swinging the knife. The police officers responded by reaching for their taser and firearms. They shot the suspect multiple times and he fell to the floor. They administered first aid and transported the suspect to the hospital, but he died after 1 hour. The altercation did not result in any other injury. Neighbors say it's not the first time someone with a mental health issue has died from such an incident. A tragic passing that didn't need to happen. If you or anyone around you needs help, ensure you put a call out to the proper channels. Over the years, we've seen accidents happen in extreme sports, but none is as tragic as the story of Caleb Moore. Born in Wheeler, Texas, on August 28, 1987, Caleb was fearless from an early age. He once climbed and descended a 10-foot pole at their house by himself when he was 4 years old. However, he set his sights on a more profitable form of risk when his father bought 3 all-terrain vehicles, also known as quads. They were supposed to use the quads for family time, and they did this by exploring local trails and ranches. But Caleb and his brother soon started racing with the quads, helping him to master the vehicle for competitive purposes. A few years later, Caleb entered racing competitions and dominated everyone in Texas. He came second at the Texas Motor Speedway and first at the Moser Valley in 2001 and 2003. It was time to go national. In Minnesota, BC Vaught approached Caleb and became his sponsor and agent. They introduced him to action sports movies. Vaught's gamble on Caleb paid out, and he became a force to reckon with. He traveled around the world, showcasing his skills with the ATV. Notably, Caleb was one of the few people who could consistently perform a backflip with the vehicle. Soon he began looking for new challenges. While watching the Winter X Games in 2009, he switched to snowmobiles. Encouraged by his father, he quickly mastered snowmobiles and even started doing backflips with his brother. He came in third place in freestyle in 2011 and 2012. Media houses like ESPN started noticing his skills. Days before the 2013 Winter X Games, Caleb granted an interview revealing plans to compete in the US, Argentina, France, and Russia. In January 2013, he was to participate in the Winter X Games in Aspen, Colorado. Hours before the event, he felt good about his chances of winning gold in front of 15,000 spectators. When it was finally time, Caleb started brightly, captivating everyone watching. He executed various stunts, including a double backflip. With 30 seconds left, Caleb was going to perform the Tsunami Indy Flip, a show-stopping stunt that could cement his first-place spot. This was something he had already done countless times before, and it didn't look like he'd struggle with it. However, something terrible was about to happen. Caleb launched the snowmobile into the air and was flipping it 360 degrees. He miscalculated the rotation, and the flip wasn't complete. Unfortunately, the nose of the snowmobile crashed into the snow, throwing him away as the vehicle went over him. He was unconscious. After some attention from the medical team, Caleb was able to get back on his feet as they took him to the medical area. He assured everyone he was fine, but he wasn't. Caleb collapsed and had to be rushed to the hospital. He had suffered internal bleeding close to his heart, causing an abnormal beating rate. They had to transfer him to another hospital for an emergency heart surgery. A few minutes after the transfer, he suffered respiratory issues, and his brain was denied air for 20 minutes. He remained unconscious and was declared brain dead on January 31st. His family decided to remove life support on the same day. On November 5, 2022, a simple matter of child custody turned bloody when a confrontation escalated between the child's father and the mother's husband. Chad Reed was a 54-year-old father from Lubbock, Texas, in the United States. Chad grew up in Lubbock and attended Louisville High School, graduating in 1985. He left Lubbock afterwards and became an entrepreneur. However, when it was time to start a family, he returned to Lubbock and married Christina. The couple had some children together before cracks started appearing in their marriage. They separated after a while and shared custody of the children. After his divorce, he remarried another woman, Jennifer Redd, on September 4, 2021. Meanwhile, his ex-wife also got into another relationship. She got married to a man named Kyle Caruth. On the 5th of November 2022, Chad went to the house of Kyle and Christina to pick up one of their children. The court allowed him to see the child at 3:15 p.m., and he went around that time for the pickup. But the relationship between him and his ex-wife had deteriorated since their separation. Christina's new husband, Kyle, also did not like it when Chad came around, but they managed the situation well until this November afternoon. When Chad arrived at their house, he expected it to be a routine pickup of his child, without any issues with the Caruths. However, this was not the case. The child was nowhere in sight, and Kyle was already telling him to get off his property. This angered Chad, who got into a heated argument with Christina, while his wife Jennifer recorded the incident from her car. Christina maintained that the child was not at home and that she wanted to spend more time with them. Chad reminded her that the court allowed her to do so before 3:15 p.m.
You keep trying to keep my son from me, I'm fixing to drag you and Anne-Marie and everybody else into court. I'm subpoenaing your mom, I'm subpoenaing...
As the argument continued, Christina's husband Kyle joined in, siding with his wife. The two men went chest to chest, but Kyle had already gone inside to bring a gun. Jennifer could be heard telling someone to call the cops. She later said she thought it was a stun gun or a weapon that couldn't cause serious harm. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case. Chad dared Kyle to use the weapon, and Kyle fired a shot between Chad's feet. They continue to argue, and Chad appears to drag the gun with Kyle before shoving him slightly. Immediately, Kyle turned around and shot twice at Chad. Chad fell to the ground, and when officers arrived, they pronounced him dead. Kyle maintains that he shot in self-defense and that they should have left his property. The case was initially going to trial, but it was settled, and the terms were not revealed. On Sunday, December 4th, 2016, what would have been a joyous occasion was about to become even more exciting when things took a tragic turn. 32-year-old Rosemir Da Silva from São Paulo and 30-year-old Udiali Damasceno met each other in Brazil and fell in love. Families said they were in love and couldn't spend a minute without each other. It was, therefore, no surprise that after dating each other for 3 years, Udiali popped the question, and Rosemir said yes without hesitation. Rosemir was a nurse, and Udiali worked as a locksmith. They were excited for the wedding and almost couldn't wait for the day. They wanted their special day to be unforgettable. However, as they both saved for the Osasco, Greater São Paulo event, Rosemir was putting aside extra money. She had an idea to make the day magical, and didn't inform anyone but her brother, Alfton Da Silva, and her friend. On the day of the ceremony, Udiali waited at the altar, with no idea how his bride would arrive at the venue. Meanwhile, Rosemir, his brother and friend Nayla Cristina Neves, who was 6 months pregnant at the time and doubling as the photographer, were having the time of their lives. They took photos and proceeded to the Robinson R-44 helicopter that was supposed to surprise her groom and the 300 guests at the venue. It was a 1-hour journey. Pilot Peterson Pincheiro would take off at 3:30 p.m. and arrive around 4:30 p.m. Silvano has always feared heights and wasn't comfortable on the journey. He wouldn't have been there if not to support his beloved sister. Rosemiro held his hand and assured him everything would be fine. Unfortunately, she was wrong. As the helicopter took off, the atmosphere was one of excitement. Everyone smiled as Nyla captured every moment. That would all change very soon. The weather began to change. Fog began taking over the atmosphere, but the pilot was still confident of making it to the venue. The fog worsened, and their pilot remained confident, but he was the only one. Others were worried and started asking questions. Nayla asked if he was familiar with the region. She asked if he was flying with GPS and knew where they were. The pilots answered all her questions in the affirmative, but everyone remained nervous. The fog had gotten worse, and it was becoming impossible to see anything. Their pilot was navigating almost aimlessly now, and Silvano had become visibly uncomfortable. They continue the journey, and suddenly, the helicopter veers off course and begins to fall. It crashed about 1 mile from the venue, killing everyone inside. Udiali and others at the reception were becoming worried. His groom was supposed to have arrived. Soon news reached them that a helicopter had crashed and that no one survived. Everyone was devastated. Investigations said the fog and rain caused a lack of visibility, forcing the pilot to descend too low. He may have done so too fast, causing him to lose total control. Delia Johnson and Claudia Banton have been friends since childhood. The two grew up together, worked together, and their families knew each other. However, neither woman led the same life. Claudia was more exposed to vices and was once jailed for forgery. They both kept questionable associations. The issues between the two friends started when Delia got into issues with Claudia's former partner and baby daddy. Delia allegedly put out a hit on the baby daddy, but Claudia's daughter was with her dad when things were going down. Unfortunately, the daughter was caught in the crossfire and was left in critical condition. Doctors did all they could to save the child, but Claudia lost her after a week. She blamed Delia for the loss of her child and decided to seek revenge. On the day Claudia's daughter died, there was a funeral for one of Claudia and Delia's friends. Delia got a call at the funeral, asking her to come to a spot for a brief gathering. She proceeded to the said spot, but this was a setup. Their other friends present at the funeral agreed to do this in support of Claudia, who had just lost her child. As they chatted on the Crown Heights streets in Brooklyn, someone informed Claudia that Delia was in place. She pulled up in a white vehicle behind Delia, who had no idea what was happening. Claudia walked up to her calmly and shot her in the head, execution style. She fell to the ground. According to the prosecutors, Claudia fired 5 more shots before walking back into the white car and leaving the scene. Police quickly got to the scene of the execution and alerted officers nearby. But there was a break in communication, and the officer who pulled Claudia up thought that the suspect was male. Claudia left town after the incident, but information about her whereabouts got to the police. On November 8th, 3 months after the shooting, the U.S. Marshals swooped in to arrest Claudia in Jacksonville, Florida, before expediting her back to New York. 4 years later, 46-year-old Claudia Banton was found guilty of second-degree murder and second-degree criminal possession following a jury trial. She was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 23 years. Do you agree with Claudia's sentencing, or do you think it should have been reduced because of what she went through? Feel free to let me know in the comments.
I am so glad that this is over.
On January 9, 2018, 19-year-old Deborah Bessa went missing in Rio Branco, Brazil. Things took a disturbing turn 2 days later when a video started making rounds online. Deborah was allegedly abducted after a robbery went wrong. Authorities launched a search expedition for her, but her family couldn't sit around waiting in silence. They formed search parties and started combing everywhere. There was not much development for 2 days, apart from local media reporting the incident and sharing her photos. On the 11th, her family started getting strange phone calls that led nowhere. However, on the 13th, the situation became a nightmare. The worst had happened. Deborah's sister Sarah and others in her search party were combing through the Caladinho neighborhood when they saw a shallow grave in the wooded area. Unfortunately, it was Deborah. As if the horror of finding her dead wasn't enough, an unsettling video began showing up on social media platforms. It was only a minute long, but the content sent shockwaves down people's spines. It showed a man with his face covered carrying a machete and holding Deborah, who was on her knees. As she begged, the man insisted she look at the camera. The man said something about taking the lives of his brothers. Then he proceeded to force Deborah down and brought his knife close to her, but she struggled with the man. A second person joins the struggle and strikes her with his knife. Both attackers continued to strike her until she could no longer move. They picked up her body and brought it closer to the camera as other attackers joined. Before platforms could take down the video, it had already gone viral, causing widespread panic and anger. Thankfully, it was also helpful for the police. They quickly identified the individuals in the video and launched a manhunt. Within days, many of the assailants had been caught. The man holding the machete was identified as Andre, a 28-year-old man. Police also arrested Lucille, an 18-year-old girl who recorded the assault, as well as 2 other teenagers. According to a police report and Deborah's sister Sarah, the attackers belonged to a gang named Comando Vermelho. They were a rival gang to Bandidos 13, of which Deborah was previously a member.
My nickname is Barbie Beck, and I'm leaving Bandidos 13.
Deborah had quit the gang after giving birth and was hiding from both groups when she was kidnapped. Andre said Deborah was responsible for her brother's death in 2013. He is currently serving 36 years in prison. The Akihabara district in Japan is known for the numerous electronic shops that are located in the area. From small shops to large businesses dealing in electronic devices, it is the go-to place in Chiyoda, Tokyo. More recently, the region also became associated with manga and anime merchandise. The area is usually densely populated on Sundays when the main street is closed to vehicles between 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. However, Akihabara would later become synonymous with one of the most disturbing attacks in Japan, after Tomohiro Kato targeted the place for an attack. Tomohiro Kato was a 25-year-old man who grew up in Aomori. Kato was an excellent and athletic student in elementary and junior high school. Everything changed for Kato when he started attending Aomori High School. His academic performance tanked, and he failed the university entrance examination. Kato's brother and family neighbors recounted how their father frequently punished him if he didn't perform well in school. He eventually trained as a mechanic and got a job at an auto parts factory, but life was quite challenging for him. At this point, his relationship with his parents had broken down completely, and he believed that they had given up on him. In June 2008, news reached him that his workplace would be laying off some staff, and that he may be one of them. Kato was already in debt and didn't see a way through the turbulent times he was facing. In 2006, he attempted an unsuccessful suicide by driving into a wall, but in 2008, he had other plans. On June 6th, Kato visited a military supply shop in Fukui and bought a dagger, gloves, and a telescopic baton. Then he traveled to Akihabara to raise money to rent a truck by selling his laptop and some software. On the 8th, Kato rented a 5-ton Isuzu Elf truck and waited for the closure of the Akihabara District Road. 20 minutes before the attack, he posted his plans online alongside other messages that showed he was frustrated, confused, and angry. Around 12:30 p.m., Kato drove the truck into a crowd of people. Chaos erupted immediately as people ran frantically away from the onrushing vehicle. Kato hit 5 people with the truck before coming to a stop. Seeing the tragic accident that had played out, others rushed to help people who had been hit, but Kato wasn't done. He climbed down from the truck holding a dagger. Then he started stabbing people who were helping the victims on the floor. A witness says he was screaming as he went through the crowd. If you're still watching, comment the hidden word creepy. When police arrived, Kato went towards a narrow alley, but was soon cornered. He dropped the knife on the floor and surrendered to the police. More than 17 ambulances arrived at the scene. 7 victims were pronounced dead at the scene. 3 of them passed away after being hit by the truck, while 4 others died from their stabbing wounds. Kato was sentenced to death on March 24, 2011, and on July 26, 2022, the sentencing was carried out at the Tokyo Detention House. Those are the most disturbing incidents caught on camera. We hope that you've learned something from them. Remember to click the like button, and if this kind of video is your thing, check out our channel as we've got loads of other videos for your enjoyment. While you're there, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you can be notified when we upload new videos. In about 3 seconds, there will be more videos on screen for you to watch, so I'll see you there. I'm out.